you aren't familiar with the area, the M15 is a bus route that runs mostly along 1st and 2nd Avenues in Manhattan. It starts at the tip of Lower Manhattan at South Ferry, and it runs through the Financial District, Chinatown, the Lower East Side, Midtown, the United Nations, the Upper East Side, and it ends in Harlem. It turns around on 125th Street in East Harlem, and it makes the trip back on 2nd Avenue. It had a ridership of 14.5 million in 2019, but it's since dropped since the pandemic. It was 8 million in 2020, but that number has been going up. From South Ferry to 125th Street, there are 61 stops in the local M15, with most stops just being 2 or 3 blocks apart. In 2010, the M15 Select Bus service was created, which allowed riders to pay before they boarded, saving a load of time waiting at each stop. It cut the number of stops from 61 to 20, with most now being 8 to 10 blocks away. Running parallel on 3rd and Lexington, you'll find the M101, M102, and M103. These lines also run most of Manhattan, but unlike the M15, they extend further through Harlem and don't terminate at South Ferry. When combined, these 3 lines serve almost as many people as the M15. There's an even better option right next to these lines. The Lexington Avenue subway line also runs nearly the entire length of Manhattan, and it happens to be one of the most used lines in the system. While not perfect, these trains are a great example of how to cross a borough efficiently. Alright, so what are the problems? It sounds like there are many different options for transport in the area. An issue comes from subway level ridership on bus. I'll be using pre-pandemic 2019 data for this video, but on the average weekday, the M15 got 46,000 riders. And we can guarantee this 46,000 rider estimate to be much higher because of all the fare evasion. According to some polls, up to 2/3 of riders don't pay their fares, so we can only guess how high the real ridership is. This miscounting means that they can't always tell how many buses ascend. Buses are typically full during rush hour, and there's very little standing room, forcing people to crowd the entrances and exits of the bus. Having such densely packed buses means that there will be more time spent at each stop. You'll notice sometimes riders have to temporarily get off the bus to let other people off, then let new people on, then get back on the bus themselves. Some options to fix this are longer buses and more doors, but that's been tried before and hasn't fixed the problem. Some cities use bi-articulated buses, which are just 3 segments, and maybe that would help. The issue is there would be a lot of retraining costs, and it would also just be very impractical for the traffic. You've probably noticed, but there's a lot of people blocking the bus lane. So the bus has 2 options. It can wait and be behind schedule, or it can just go around the truck. And it usually does go around. But all that back and forth means the bus lanes aren't used to their potential. And this stems from a lack of unloading spots. So my idea for streets like this is you just shift the bus lane over 1 lane. Then you make the most right lane an unloading only lane. It's not parking. Obviously this would only happen in streets that are commercial, and it wouldn't even take up the entire block. And if you're wondering, does 1st Avenue have enough lanes? Yes. And if you're wondering, will traffic get worse? Maybe. If we review past examples of this, we know that adding more lanes won't solve traffic. So I think it's pretty fair to say that going from 4 lanes to 3 lanes won't cause that much of a difference. And just like the city's doing right now, they should avoid doing this by the 59th Street Bridge, the Queens Midtown Tunnel, and the United Nations. Maybe in these spots they can build barriers and protect buses from cars. To sum this section up, I think they need places for off-duty buses and companies to park. Now let's talk about the local. While I don't think there's any public data on it, the local is definitely used less than the select. The only time I ever use the local bus is if I just missed a select bus. Even then, it's usually just faster to wait for the next select anyways. Now, obviously everyone has different circumstances. The local bus is great for people with disabilities, as well as people who don't want to or can't walk as far. Unfortunately, with stops every 2 or 3 blocks, it's too slow for the average commuter. I think it's fine that there are multiple different types of riders. The issue comes from the buses sharing a lane. Both the local and select buses use the same bus lane, which means when the local bus stops more frequently, it blocks the select bus. This means frequent service on the local impacts frequent service in the select. I think there are 2 good ways to fix this. One is decreasing local service during rush hour, even more so than it is right now. Maybe this configuration would work. There's a website that tells you a lot of different information about the New York City buses. I'll leave it below. Unfortunately, it doesn't really plot out the stats over the course of 24 hours. I think we'll find that a lot of the ways to improve the local bus are just decreasing the amount of time spent at each stop. One such way is making fare payment faster. Since right now fare payment is a single file line, maybe they can add 2 fare payment machines. The second could be right behind the door, and since the doors are already fairly wide, people could use that one to save time. The best thing about this is letting people pay their fares while the bus is moving. Fare evasion could be increased by this, but I think it would be such a small factor, and besides the driver could even see the box anyways. And while Omni will help this, it's not being rolled out fully until 2024. Before I wrap this up, despite all the things that can be improved, the M15 is by far one of the most reliable in the system. We get buses pretty consistently every 5 minutes, and traffic times are pretty standard day to day. Yes, it isn't great, but there are so many different routes that get neglected over the M15. I've seen 30-minute wait times on the M34, and I really can't imagine how it's like in the outer parts of the city. I think the best thing that can be done right now is more transparency. Maybe they can start by making bus schedules more public. There used to be detailed schedules printed at each stop. Now they're nowhere to be seen. And by the way, this PDF is great, but it only gives a few stops. I also really wouldn't call it user-friendly or accessible. Thanks for watching until the end. I'm really curious about what other ways the MTA could improve the bus system, so if you have any constructive criticism, please comment it below. Anyways, if you're new, you can check out my other videos here, or not. Goodbye.